What's up, everyone? I am back with the This Week in Fantasy series, a series in which I review the fantasy football league that I've been participating in since 2008. Almost all of the players in the league, in fact, all of the players in the league are returning faces this year, and we finally have an entire league full of active people, so it will be interesting to follow along this year, regardless of whether or not you are in this league or not. We will be touching on how we think each player in this fantasy football league will perform. With me, like last year, is my guest, the infamous Cgauch, my division rival, Christian. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really good, man. It's good to finally be here and be at this time. I feel like the whole year you're waiting on fantasy football, and it just kind of sucks to wait this long. But I'm glad that it's finally here, man.
I agree wholeheartedly. And it does make watching the NFL more entertaining. Very often with the NFL, it gets so politicized and has so many commercials in it that very frequently I get to the point where I don't really want to watch it. And doing this with my friends every year is one of the only things keeping me semi-interested. And even now, I record all the games and just watch them without commercials because watching them live is pretty brutal.
Yeah, normally you have to like sit there on Sundays and just watch your favorite team and be like, all right, cool. And then sometimes you'll watch like their same like division rivals and see how they're doing. But having like playing fantasy, you get to watch like every team almost and be able to root for each individual team sometimes.
Yeah, and you have a reason to at least check box scores and care about the outcomes of games. So, we're going to be reviewing each team together and giving them grades, and we're going to be selecting which teams to review based on the matchups. And since it's the first week, of course, it is a division rivalry week. So, we'll pretty much be going by division since we're doing it by matchup. The opening matchup is going to be my team, Lemon Dogs, versus Lily's team, The Anomaly. So my team, like last year, has Drew Brees. Now, as many of us know, last year Drew Brees was one of these guys who had very high expectations and was considered consistent, and a lot of people thought he was going to go off. Drew Brees also has been someone who gets to throw the ball a lot, he gets to air it out, and he does so with a very high completion percentage. However, last year the Saints established a very potent two-headed monster in Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, and Drew Brees' production dropped off a little bit. Now, Mark Ingram is dealing with a 4-game suspension, but is Drew Brees going to have a year like last year? Is he going to be even worse? Or is he going to sort of jump back and improve? I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this matter, Cgauch.
I think Drew Brees bounces back and has a big season, especially his first 4 games with Ingram being out, because I feel like he's going to be airing out the ball a lot more just having Kamara back there. But I also feel like Kamara is going to have even bigger weeks and could possibly take over that starting role and kind of push, not make Ingram exit the offense completely, but take over most of those plays that Ingram was getting in and like splitting time. I think Kamara's going to probably take over that backfield finally.
It's interesting to me to sort of ponder whether Ingram actually does have a chance of losing his job, because on one hand they had so much success last year. I almost think, well, there's really no way that they would ever deviate. Like, as soon as his suspension's over, he's going to be back. But another part of me wonders, teams have had a whole season to study Chimera and what he does. Of course, last year he was a rookie, but they've had an entire offseason to sort of game plan and try to figure out how to contain him. And I'm interested to see whether Chimera gets shut down or figured out in any way. And then if Ingram comes back and Chimera hasn't been doing well, certainly Ingram's going to be expected to be the saving grace and will probably get a lot of touches.
Yep, I agree.
But with Breeze specifically, like you said, he's going to have a bounce back year. I sort of think that he's definitely going to throw more touchdowns than he did last year. I don't think the running game's going to go to shit, but I don't think it's going to be as run focused as it was last year.
Yeah, I feel like if they incorporate the running backs as much as they will last year, it'll be more off of like screen passes and stuff like that. Kamara's a beast out of the back, being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. So I think that'll help Breeze quite a bit.
And hopefully for me, when he tosses it out of the backfield, those are the ones that he punches in.
Yep.
For, little passes, dink and dunk count for me. Really, I think it's Ingram's success that hurts Breeze more, because with Ingram, it's the dive plays right up the gut on the goal line. And, Breeze doesn't get any credit for those. But with these little screen passes and check down stuff, or the sets where Chimera lines up as a receiver, Breeze is getting credit. So it is sort of nice, I guess, for Breeze owners, the Ingram suspension in a way. Lamar Miller versus Coleman, and for whatever reason, a lot of the running back ones have been just swapped by the computer, I've noticed, so I'm just going to sort of match them up as they should be.
Yeah,
But
I don't understand why they did that. I don't like that.
yeah, because Johnson and Elliott were both first round picks, and I swear yesterday they were labeled first, but anyway, the running back one of this team is David Johnson, the Cardinals' burner solo act, who of course hurt his wrist last year, and No Fried Rice had David Johnson last year and sort of suffered because of it. This is a very potent guy, Christian. What do you think about him?
I think he's easily going to be another top 3 back in the league, like he was consistently beforehand, before that unfortunate injury. I think honestly he may. I think he'll outscore Elliott this week. I like that matchup. Elliott could also be one of those running backs in the league that can be a top 3 guy in fantasy. But I think like him against Carolina and David Johnson against Washington, I think you win this matchup with David.
Yeah, I don't expect Washington to do much at all this year, honestly.
Yep, I agree. I don't think they'll be very good at all.
As far as Coleman goes, Coleman to me, I've had Freeman, his counterpart, for so many years, drafted him high, and I would say the split is about 60-40, Freeman-Coleman. Coleman gets a surprisingly decent amount of touches. Freeman is pretty much guaranteed, I think, to go down once a year. He's not one of these guys that gets severely injured. However, I do think that Coleman will probably have a couple games where he starts. And I got Coleman significantly later than the first round. And if Freeman has significant health issues for whatever reason, Coleman suddenly becomes a back on a pretty damn good team. It's not a great pick, but it's okay.
Yeah, I feel like he'll be definitely fill in for that RB2 role on being on the Falcons offense. They're going to score every which way they possibly can. So I think he's a good RB2 to have.
And it sort of fits the theme of a lot of running backs on my bench, where if you look at guys like Ivory or a guy like Yeldon, they are somewhat talented and they are backups, but their starters that are ahead of them sort of have question marks. You look at Yeldon, Fournette is the guy that's ahead of him, and Fournette, of course, notorious for ankle problems. A lot of people are sort of speculating he's going to struggle with injuries. And of course, Chris Ivory is behind Shady McCoy. Shady McCoy has some weird stuff going on with his girlfriend where it looks like he might catch a couple game suspension. Who knows? So those are two guys that could rise into the starter role. And that's sort of what Coleman's like, but Coleman definitely gets a few touches here and there. So AJ Green, he got hurt last year, but in the past he's been healthy. Cincinnati is pretty bad, but when they do score, it's pretty much always going to be from AJ Green. They have a lot of people in the backfield, and you know what? I consider Tyler Eifert to be too injury prone, to be too much of a touchdown stealing threat. Does AJ Green still have it, Cgauch?
Yeah, I think he does have it. His biggest letdown has always been Andy Dalton. He's always the one I feel like hindering AJ Green in a sense, like holding him back. AJ Green's easily top 5 receiver in the league skill wise. I think he's going to have another great year if he stays injury free, which I think he will. And then I think he wins his matchup against Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald is like, he's getting old, man. He's been in the league for quite some time. He's super consistent, but I feel like AJ Green's definitely going to blow him out of the water.
Now, Juju Smith-Schuster. This is Pittsburgh's second option. Remember, Martavius Bryant went over to Oakland and has since been cut. and Antonio Brown as the main threat. Smith-Schuster is pretty much going to be getting the drippings that the boy Brown, who is a monster, who's always right at the top of the standings for receivers year after year after year. If Brown is getting doubled and Raplesberger has to throw to someone, it's going to be this guy, Smith-Schuster. I love his celebrations that he was doing, and I think he's a talented option. What do you think, Cgauch?
I like him a lot. I think he would be better as like a wide receiver three. I would have him. I don't know why the computer is doing this, but I would have him Brandon Cooks over him. And Juju Smith-Schuster's he's not one of those receivers that's going to get like a ton of receptions every game because Antonio Brown and Bell are just going to outshine him every time. But whenever he does get the ball, he can make something happen with it. Like he consistently makes big plays out of the catches that he does get, and I think he'll definitely be a good wide receiver three this year.
And then I got the Gronk. Cgauch, you're all about the Gronk. Tell me about him.
I love him, dude. He's a beast. He's dominant. That's basically another wide receiver one right there. He's Brady's favorite target by far. You already know this. Everybody knows that. He's going to score points no matter what. You just can't stop him. He's too dominant of a force. If he stays healthy, wide receiver one all day. Like, that was a good pick. I like it.
You know, when you hear about Gronk, you sort of think like, oh, he's this big, tall guy that gets hurt a lot. And then you actually watch him play. You watch a Patriot game where Gronk is completely healthy and he's clicking with Brady, and it's just this giant catching balls over safeties and linebackers, and it just looks like the defense has no chance. He's ripping them apart 20 yards at a time, and he's making it look like a joke. And that's
Yeah,
Rob
it looks like he's in a video game.
It's ridiculous. He just towers over everyone. DBs, they really can't mess with him because of his tremendous size, but he's quick enough where backers can't really keep up with him. He's a huge weapon, and at a position that's very thin, he's a monstrosity, and definitely the number one guy at his position. I got him in the third round. Now, with Gronk, you pretty much have to assume he's going to miss a few with injury. The question is how many.
I'm hoping he plays the whole season. I think at worst he misses 2 to 3 games, but I highly doubt it. He looked really good last year. And honestly, like looking at your team, I didn't think you had a very good team, and now like looking at it and going over, you actually have a pretty badass team. You have David Johnson, AJ Green, who could possibly be a top 5 receiver in the league, Drew Brees, top 3, top 5 quarterback in the league, and then you have basically a second wide receiver one with Gronk, especially if he stays healthy, which is huge for this matchup because you're basically going to counter all of Brady's points with Edelman being out. All he has is Hogan over Gronk, and Gronk's definitely going to get all those.
Gronk has a way of finding the end zone with that height, man. He really has a nose for it. But we know Brady likes to spread the wealth, but Gronk is such a force. He's a very unique weapon, and that's sort of the one edge that he has that gets him the ball more consistently over any other option in the Patriot system. You know, that one year where Brady teamed up with Randy Moss and they set all those records and were God tier, and that only existed for one freaking year, unfortunately. They could have really torn the record books up if they had stayed together longer. But the point is that a lot of times Brady has succeeded with just, whoever the hell walks in. He'll have some slot type white guy, and then as far as deep threat or speed guy, he doesn't have a whole lot. And Gronk has been hurt so frequently that maybe Brady hasn't been able to tear it up as heavily or consistently with Gronk as he would have liked. The point being, of course, that if Gronk does stay healthy all the way through, he's a very unique and powerful weapon that is sure to rack up a ton of points. And he's also one of these guys that can have multi-touchdown games, Cgauch.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think didn't last year's week 1 he start off with like 3 touchdowns in the first game or 2? Can't remember. He's a dominant force, dude. That was a good pick. I like him, especially in the third round.
Yeah, a lot of people reach in the second, and I was sort of teasing you about I thought you might take him early second. You didn't, obviously, but the Gronk is sort of a Cgauch pick. It's high risk, high reward. So since we just talked about Gronk, let's talk about Ebron, because we pretty much know Gronk is going to get injured. This guy had quite a few points last year, and I think other than T.Y. Hilton, he might be one of Luck's targets that he likes to go to more frequently than not. So how good is Eric Ebron, Cgauch?
I think he's all right. I wouldn't have picked him up. I think he had a lot of points last year just because um, their quarterback was injured. I'm at a loss for words. I forgot his name.
Luck?
Yeah, Andrew Luck. Their backup, I can't remember. I'm thinking of their backup. I can't remember who it was, but I feel like he was pressured and like nervous to not screw up, so he was just kept dumping it off to the tight end. So I think that helped out Ibram a lot having the backup in there. But I think Ty is going to have a dominant year with if Andrew Luck stays healthy the whole season.
T.Y. Hilton's your guy, isn't he, Cgauch? Aren't you a
I
big
love
T.Y.
him.
Hilton guy? Why do you tell me about T.Y. Hilton real quick? Why do you like him so much?
He's just at what he was a top 5 receiver with Luck whenever he was healthy, and I had him last year, but Luck was out, and so I think he'll be a top 5 receiver again.
Interesting. Okay, more on that later when we get to your team. It'll be soon. I want
Mhm.
to delve into that more later when the time comes. So, to round my team out, other than the bench, Brandon Cooks. Obviously, a lot of people are really hyping the Rams. This is a guy who's had success with previous teams, and I am under the impression that he might actually reel in some touchdowns since Cooper Kupp, I think, is going to be like the check down mid range option. Maybe Cooks will be more of the deep guy. What do you think about this Cook pick, Cgauch?
I think Brandon Cooks is he's an off-brand Tyreek Hill. I think he's like a one-shot wonder. He'll get a few touchdowns every now and then, and it's typically off a fade just because he's so fast. I think he's the lesser of a Stefan Diggs or a Tyreek Hill. I I don't really like the pick just because he's not going to get as many balls as I would like, but I think he's all right for a wide receiver 3.
Okay. How many wins are the Rams going to finish with this year?
Probably 12 or 13. I think they may win the Super Bowl with adding Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters. Their
Okay.
defense is stacked. And then they got Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald just signed his contract. They're nuts.
They got Sue. He's going to stomp on people's heads. Watch out. is
Have
Matt
to pay a ton of fines.
is Matt Bryant still worth the shit? He plays for the Falcons. He has a gray beard. You might have heard of him.
I think he's worth the shit. I mean, the Falcons are consistently getting down into the red zone, and even if they don't come out with a touchdown, which typically they will, he'll be getting all the PATs. He's a consistent kicker, and normally makes over 40-yard field goals. So I think that's a good kicker to have with the Falcons' offensive power. They'll constantly be in field goal range.
Plus, he plays in the NFC South. Two of those stadiums in the division are domes, and it's the South, obviously, as the name implies. So you don't have to deal with these ridiculous snowy ass games where neither team can get anything done, and you can't even see the post, and he's kicking in the muck. Like the weather's going to be pretty good, and it's going to be the weather's going to be lucrative to offense.
Dang, I never thought about that. How many kickers played in like dome games?
Yeah, I don't, it might not be the hugest deal, but whenever I think like, okay, this guy is gonna have to play like half of his games like way up north, and like the conditions might be bad, and he's like a kicker. I don't know. I think it's something worth
Oh
considering.
yeah, that's definitely something worth considering. I think that's smart to think about. I just had never even thought of that until you just said that.
So I think Bryant's pretty good because the Falcons are gonna put up points. See, gosh, I feel like there's this argument of what do you really want in a kicker? Is it field goals or is it consistent points after? And to me, for my money, you want points after because the offense in general is going to get field goals here and there, but if it's consistently generating points after, that means it's taking a lot of trips into you can call it like the kicker red zone if you want, like the 35-yard line and in, like his field goal range. If they're making it around there because their offense is above average, then that's good for a kicker. There are some kickers who play for an offense that's not very good, so they get a lot of field goals because the offense is always stalling. I feel like those guys can put up the bigger numbers, but they can also screw you. Like, what do you think about this, Christian? Field goals or PATs?
I mean, I agree with you 100%. I couldn't have said it any better myself. I like what you said. That's what I look for in a kicker is the PATs because the same exact reasons you do, they're going to be constantly in that quote unquote kicker red zone.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Cool. And then the Rams. Spencer told me this was a good pick. I'm not
Oh
sure
yeah,
what to think about the Rams, but I know they have a lot of weapons on defense. I think that their schedule is a lot easier than a lot of other people's schedule, and I think that they definitely got a lot of turnovers last year. So is the Rams a good pick?
yeah. I feel like the Rams or the Jacksonville Jags will be the number one or number two defense this year. I feel like that was a great defense to pick up.
Nice. And here we can go over the bench briefly. Danny Amendola, of course, one of these slot white guys that Tom Brady made phenomenal use out of. Isn't he a Texas Tech alum?
I believe he is with Edelman or not Edelman. Wes Welker.
And he is the Miami main weapon, I believe, even though he's a slot receiver who's going to steal catches from him. Landry's gone.
Is he the wide receiver one there?
Well, it's tricky because he's slot, so he's definitely the most talented receiver they have.
Yeah.
So I think
Eli
that's
Manning, not a bad backup quarterback either.
yeah. And with Amendola to finish off on him, Tannehill's back, so he'll probably catch a few touchdowns.
Yeah, that's a strong bench receiver to have right there.
One of the main reasons I picked Eli is because I think OBJ is going to have a big year. And I think that obviously Eli is going to be the one connecting with OBJ.
I love to hear that, man, because I got Odell this year, and I had David Johnson in the other league and Odell in this league, and they both got hurt. Last year, I had to play with both without both of my first rounders, but I think Odell will have another dominant season like he has before. I feel like Eli Manning's honestly one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. He gets so much shit, and it's I don't know why he's won 2 Super Bowls, so he can't be that bad.
Yeah. It's funny because everyone and their dog was predicting the freaking Giants to win the division last year. And of course they were horrifically bad. So now, everyone, now that Barkley is on the Giants, is very cautiously sort of hedging their bets. A lot of people, of course, are just taking the safe pick. Oh, the Eagles. Of course, the Super Bowl champions still look really good. But it's sort of funny to look back and see how everyone was so high on the Giants. And then 6 weeks in, it's like everyone's looking at each other, repeating the same thing. Oh, their O line's terrible. Oh, it's their O line.
They had a good defense. I don't know what went wrong, but I mean Odell obviously being out hurt him. But
Yeah.
dude, I didn't hear anything or think anything of the Eagles, and then they just came out of nowhere. It was beating it, just constantly winning. Kevin was talking all kinds of shit.
The Eagles. Man, and their fans really fucking come out of the woodwork, don't they?
It's crazy. I could have sworn Kevin was a Chargers fan a few years ago, but
They're
I
the
don't know.
Eagles fans are like Yankee fans of the NFL. Like they're really insufferable.
I hate Yankees.
Well, think about it. Like their Philly fans, these are the same fans that threw snowballs at Santa Claus. These are some really nasty people on some level. Not all of them, but a lot of these Philly fans, man. But regardless, Gio Bernard, another guy that is a backup, but sort of hoping that the guy in front of him will get hurt, although I think he is less good than the other two. And we already spoke about Ebron. So Cgauch, give my team a rating.
I would give it a solid F. No, I'm just joking. Probably a B plus.
Okay, and how come?
I like. I don't want to give it because it's the first. It's kind of like a shit spot to grade it right now because it's the first team we've seen and like the first time I've even gone over any teams like looking back on the draft. And so I don't want to give out an A too early, but I may have to come back and change it looking back at everything. But right now I'm giving it a B, B
Okay.
plus.
I understand because I was looking at these teams directly after when they were drafted and sitting there thinking like, well shit, that one's good, that one's good, that one's really good. Whereas before, a lot of times when I did these videos, it was like, okay, like these three are bad, like a couple of these I don't like at all, a couple are ridiculous. Like you could almost put them into little tiers. But with this draft, I sort of was overwhelmed with how much better it seemed to get. So
Yeah, it feels. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I'll be interested to see at the very end whether we are able to come to a conclusion as to if the teams are actually better or what.
Yeah, it's good to see like the quality of the league get better and better every year as we play it. Last year, my team was shit, and I do not. I was just constantly losing games by like 5 to 10 points, and it was so annoying. It's the most frustrating thing in the world.
All right, and I'm not gonna grade my team. That's just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
too
Obviously,
biased.
obviously I like. It's one thing if it's a power ranking and I have to like rank it among the other 12, but with this it's like yes, I like the people that I picked. Obviously the running back 2 is a little bit of a hole, but I have enough options. I obviously went out of my way to get enough options to try to address that. So,
I wish there was a way to see the position you drafted the players in, because what? When did you pick up AJ Green? Like start of the fourth, like late third? Because I'm sitting here trying to think on how you got David Johnson, Gronk, and AJ Green.
I think I took Green with the second round pick.
Hmm.
Late second. Yeah, that's what happened. Okay, so let's do Lily's team. You lead this time. You like go Tom Brady and talk about him and toss it to me.
Tom Brady, not much to really talk about. The GOAT, 6 time Super Bowl champ, number one, top 100 in the NFL players ratings this year. Uh, Dominant, everything he does. Dude has ice in his veins. I don't know what it is. It just seems like every year he gets younger and younger and just keeps playing better and better. Not so. There's really not much to say other than it's Brady. It's the GOAT. So he's definitely going to beat Breeze. I feel like this year for the your game matchup, Breeze is playing Tampa Bay, so I think Brady may or Breeze may beat Brady this week. Outscore him. He's projected less than him, but Houston got Tyrann Mathieu. They got Cguach, Jadeveon Clowney coming after him every play. It's going to be a tough week for Brady. I feel like that's probably one of his toughest weeks for his O line, if not the toughest, unless they play the Rams this season. Lamar Miller, I feel like he's an all right back. He's somewhat inconsistent. I'm not very high on Lamar Miller. I don't like him very much. But what do you think about him?
Well, I honestly like Lamar Miller because I consider him one of these uber consistent running backs who he's not really ever going to go off and get you more than 20, but he's always going to get you between 8 and 12, 8 and, maybe 15 or 16 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
He's not explosive, but if you need a good solid running back number 2, he's good. And as far as Brady goes, oh man, the undisputed best quarterback ever, Mr. Consistency. He's beat all kinds of different teams, won a plethora of rings, and he might not put up as many fantasy points as a running quarterback, but in real life, in terms of actual raw ability and talent, no one comes close. He's a goddamn legend.
Yep. Moving on to Ezekiel Elliott, I feel it's the same thing with David Johnson. I feel like those first five running backs, you can't really go wrong in that area, the top five pick range, just because any of those backs could easily be number one to number two back in the league. You can have an argument for him. His offensive line's amazing. You can have an argument for David Johnson that the Cardinals, that's all they really have is David, other than Larry Fitzgerald. But I feel like David Johnson's going to get mul- probably multiple touchdowns every other week. Um, I feel like you win the matchup just because on how dominant David Johnson is, but you could also make the same argument for Elliott. Larry Fitzgerald, I think he loses the matchup to AJ Green. I'm not very high on Larry Fitzgerald, but he consistently puts up numbers every year. But for me, he's just getting older and older. I'm just like, I don't want to sell myself on it. Like, I'm not sold on him for this season just because he gets older and older every year. Like, he's bound to stop producing that many numbers as much as he has been. What do you think?
Well, I totally agree with your point about Larry Fitzgerald because he's Mr. Consistency. And in terms of catches, raw catches, and being targeted in a big part of his team's offense, he's always going to be up there. No matter if it's a corpse or a young guy throwing the ball in Arizona, Fitz is going to be the guy that gets most of the targets. Now they're a ground and pound team that ties into David Johnson. David Johnson, of course, is going to get a ton of carries. He's going against a Washington defense that's not very good. And Fitzgerald is facing off against A.J. Green. Now A.J. Green, talented guy, Indiana, not really very sold on them. Never considered them to have a very strong defense. I think A.J. Green is probably going to catch a touchdown. They're going to look to get him the ball on that offense especially. They sort of have a bunch of running backs, none of them really that consistent. And of course Zeke facing my Carolina Panthers. It's so cool how the Cowboys are playing the Panthers in the opening week. I wish it was in Dallas. But here Zeke is going up against Carolina. And I think David Johnson does get the slight edge. He's playing the inferior team. And similarly to Zeke, he's going to be looked upon by his own team to please God get us some offense because Dak Prescott has no weapons to throw to. The Cowboys did a very poor job of getting Dak weapons, and regardless of what a lot of talking heads and Cowboys fans might think, the Cowboys I don't think did a good enough job addressing the receiver question for Dak. I think instead of getting that linebacker who even Jackson spoke highly about, it might have been a better decision to get one of these highly athletic top-tier receivers that was available in the draft, because at the moment the Cowboys are looking like a team who are really relying on just Zeke to carry them, and their offensive line is already sort of coming up lame before a single regular season snap has even been snapped off.
Yeah. Touching base on the Cowboys real quick. Did you see she drafted Des Bryant? Did you see him on the bench?
I did see that. I was with her in real life. She definitely knew that he wasn't like still a Cowboy. She was aware of his situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to me because I wonder if Dez is literally sitting there and being like, "No, I want 10 million each year." Like he's just refusing to come down and being ridiculous, and he'll just be unemployed for like 10 weeks until a team either he figures it out or a team gets desperate, whichever will come first. But I wonder how long it'll take for him to sign, and I wonder if the Browns have given this dude an offer, because I'm almost certain they have, at least like a lowball offer.
I thought I saw on online that he turned down their offer.
That's
I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I'm not sure about that, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Browns made him an offer, because what do they have to lose?
Exactly. They have. I think the Browns may have like a 6-win season. I'm predicting like a bold prediction for them, but any games won would be a bold prediction for the Browns. But to go back to our lineup, I think Amari Cooper, I think that's a really good wide receiver too to have. He has nobody really to compete with him for catches other than an injured and old Jordy Nelson, which apparently is actually looking pretty good. So I could be eating my words right there. Delaney Walker, I feel like he's a decent tight end to have. Mariota does tend to throw to him quite a bit and focus on him a bit too much. But I like the Amari Cooper matchup against Juju Smith-Schuster. I think Amari does beat him out, but Juju is playing Cleveland and Amari is playing the Rams, so it could be a tough week for Amari.
Yeah, it might be a tough week for Amari, but at the same time, Crabtree's gone. His chain wearing ass is fucked off, and Amari Cooper, the perpetual disappointment, Mr. Long Bomb 4-point week, is finally going to be in the spotlight, and he is either going to get 160 points or be considered a failure. I am so tired of hearing about Amari Cooper and every year how he's a threat and he needs to be drafted, and he obviously has the talent and he has speed and he is legitimately able to go deep and catch those balls. However, the place where people advise drafting him and where people sort of act like he belongs is ridiculous. And I think overall, I mean, he's due for a big year. At this point, he has to have one for his career to stay alive. Juju's playing Cleveland. I give the edge to Juju. I give the edge to Breeze because Tampa's weak. Winston's out. And Houston's strong the first 4 weeks before everyone, including Watt, gets hurt. I give Miller the edge over Coleman. Washington is not very good. Johnson gets the edge over Zeke. Green gets a slight edge over Fitz because I don't really know what to think about the quarterback situation in Arizona. And I just said Juju over Cooper. And with Gronk, I think it's very simple. You give him the edge every time unless he's hurt. And
Yep.
what you said about Delaney Walker was true. He does get targeted a lot. And let me tell you what I think about the Tennessee Titans, Cgauch. Are you familiar with the show Better Call Saul?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you know how very often in that show there will be these very quiet, slow, melodramatic scenes with lots of different cutesy camera angles where you're sitting there and about 2.5 minutes in, when Jack has happened, oftentimes without a single character speaking or even being shown, you sort of sit there and it's like, what the hell is going on? Like, get on with it. You know what I'm talking about? That's the
Yes.
fucking Titans. Mariota's been there for years. He had a really good running back, a guy who came off of an incredible season with the Dallas Cowboys. He had some weapons to work with, not top tier guys, but guys that good quarterbacks mold up. You know, think about a guy like Tom Brady. He takes no-name fuckheads we've never heard of and turns them into household names. Small white guys, oftentimes, in a position where there's not a whole lot of white guys. Mariota, nope. We're living in the same, oh, the Titans are about due to go 10-6 paradigm we've been living in for 4 years. We're watching Better Call Saul in season fucking 4, wondering what Kim's purpose is. That's how I feel watching a Titans game, Christian. And
You
I
seem
don't like
very
it.
passionate about it.
I don't like it, Cgauch. I'm tired. Like, you sit there and you sit there and you sit there and you just have to say to yourself, where is this all going? And when I see Mariota and that little ragtag group in Tennessee and that shit tier division, and they're sitting there saying, oh, we're going to get it done, we're going to get it done. Maybe you missed your window. You know, maybe when Andrew Luck was out for 4 straight years and before Saxonville existed was your chance to get into playoffs and do something other than bomb out. You know, maybe you could have given your fans at least an AFC championship game loss. At least you could have made it to the semifinals.
I
What?
feel like they have all the individual like player talent, not maybe at like the wide receiver core position, but they have the personal player talent to turn it around. They just need the right coordinator and some receivers to help Mariota out, I feel like.
Well, like, people have been giving Mariota the benefit of the doubt for a long time. I just think it's time to put up.
I believe in him, dude. He's an Oregon Duck. I have to.
The Ducks. Okay, so Ted Ginn, very explosive, but he's a Saints receiver. I expect Ted Ginn to have a lot of like 5-point games, 4-point games, and then after a couple of those pop off for like 22. He's going to be very boom or bust. And in the New Orleans offense, remember we had a whole conversation about them running. So it's not going to be as great as it once could have been. And I quite frankly think that Cooks is going to get more guaranteed targets than Ginn. And they both, I think, they have cushy matchups.
Cooks
Considering,
plays for the Rams.
yes, but he's opposing Ginn.
Ginn plays for New Orleans.
I know what I'm saying is, Ginn.
Oh, okay, matchup. Okay, I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, they
I
oppose
thought
each
you were,
other in
I
the
thought you were
fantasy
saying he
league.
was gonna like steal targets. My bad.
No, no,
I think
no.
Michael Thomas will outshine Ginn though.
Yeah, Thomas is the guy who's going to get more targets. Ginn is going to be the deep threat, so that's why I think he's gonna get points. He's just going to be inconsistent. Cooks,
Yep.
I think, is going to get more consistent targets in LA's offense, so I edge
Yeah,
Cooks.
yeah. I give the edge to Cooks as well, and I also give the edge to Brian over Goskowski. He's a very very good kicker in the league, but he'll be kind of what we talked about earlier. He'll just getting most of the PATs. I don't feel like the Patriots get it down to the quote unquote kicker red zone and don't score a touchdown. So he's a very good consistent kicker to have, and he will make those long field goals when they need them. But the Patriots just score so many touchdowns. He's typically going to just be getting PATs mostly every game.
Yep, people consider Goskowski top tier. He's pretty much going to be really good every year because the Pats are going to do that.
Yep. Also, the Rams defense will beat out the Vikings. I don't consider the Vikings defense that very strong.
I think they get some sacks and they're decent, but the Rams defense outshines them, and I think I'm going to have to edge myself in this game, despite what the computer says.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let's move on, or this thing is going to run 3 hours. To round out the Cursed Lands division, we got the infamous Cgauch, who is, of course, the guest right now, versus the very talented One Johnny Football, Weston, please. One Hold the Wedding, Hold the Reception Dinner, please. And
He's garbage.
Andy Dalton is starting. Now I'm looking down here. He's got Wincy on the benchy. Of course, someone wants to benefit from the Philly quarterback situation. It's just not me. Not a huge fan of Dalton. Don't think he's terrible. Don't think he's very good. I think he has weapons. A lot more weapons than some people, frankly. But he's being opposed by Matt Ryan. Well, I guess I'll do that at the when I review the second person. But he has Fournette too, who he had last year. Everyone says Fournette is injury prone, but he popped off last year. And before I throw it to Cgauch, we'll touch Mixon, who of course is sort of the main guy in Cincy. But it is Cincy, so their offense I don't think is ever really considered that explosive. So what do you think about Weston's top three?
I don't like him, honestly. I'd never been really big on Fournette. I feel like he he got hurt so often in college with his ankle. Like he's bound to get hurt in the league. He's gonna. I feel like this is the year. If he does get injured, this would be the year for it to happen. He had a relatively decent year, pretty good year last year. Dalton, I'm not a big fan on him. I feel like AJ Green makes him look better than what he is. He did have I think he had one good season like 2 or 3 years ago. Andy Dalton did, but like I stated last review on the other teams, Dalton has always been the person like holding AJ Green back in a sense. Mixon, I'm not very high on him either, just because he shares time with Giovanni Bernard, and I think Jeremy Hill is Jeremy Hill still there?
No, but remember Peyton Hillis?
Oh yeah, he. That's just a timeshare team that's I never really liked having any Cincinnati running backs to begin with. I don't think Joe Mixon's going to be a very good pick. I feel like my three blow his three out of the water, no problem. And I'm still predicted to lose, and I don't understand how.
Well, we'll get to that. Personally, Mixon, there's something to be said about having the guy who, at the beginning of the season, quote unquote, has the job. But Cincinnati, when I think Cincinnati, I think Dalton to Green, and they're living and dying by that. There's not a whole lot else going on. If they get it up to the goal line, they might try to punch it in, and if it works, it works. But that offense is pretty one-dimensional. There's not a whole lot of other stuff going on. Fournette, everyone says, oh, it's all about the injuries. If he stays healthy, he's top tier. But everyone's saying he can't stay healthy.
Yep.
So to move on, Crabtree has become the number one option for a shit tier quarterback because, as far as I'm concerned, Joe Flacco has one foot in the goddamn grave. And the guy that they drafted, who is that guy that they
Lamar
drafted?
Jackson.
Thank you, Lamar Jackson. People are going to be calling for him to be starting by like week 12 because the Ravens are doing that thing where they're sort of below average, but they're pretending like they're going to contend, and then they'll have the odd win versus a team that's better than them, and they'll raise their hands up and say, yay, look at us, we're so good, we're a legitimate playoff team. They're in a division with the Browns and the Bengals, and they're still shitting the bed as often as they do. And the Steelers seem to have seasons where everyone on their team with talent is hurt. I don't know, Michael Crabtree I feel like would have been better off going to Dallas. Did you know he was a Dallas guy? He grew up like in Oak Cliff, I think.
Yeah, he played for Texas Tech, so I'm sure he prefers to play for the Cowboys, possibly be back near his hometown. I think T.Y. Hilton's definitely the better receiver here for this matchup. Crabtree, I don't really like the Baltimore players offensively, other than Alex Collins, just because he's going to be getting 80% of the offensive production.
When Ray Rice slugged his girlfriend, it forever killed the Ravens being a legitimate option in fantasy football. Because since he's been gone, their offense has been a fucking joke.
Yep.
It's like they used to just ground and pound with Rice, and now since he's gone flat, it's almost like Flacco forgot how to play. But we all know he was never that good to begin with. But holy crap, it's really went downhill. It's bad.
Yeah, they're not a very good team. I predict Lamar Jackson takes the starting job by week 6.
Interesting. I think it's time for them to move on, or
Yeah,
or
he is.
do a because like the Flacco thing's not gonna work.
Yeah,
It's not gonna work.
the best year he had was obviously the year he won the Super Bowl, and he wasn't even that stellar during the regular season. He just played very well in the playoffs.
Stellar defense.
Yep.
So Michael Thomas number one for NOLA, but he's being OBJ'd. OBJ's obviously got the matchup there. Michael Thomas, yeah, he's the number one guy, but it is the Saints. They're going to score any way they can. To me, you can be the number one option of a team, but there's a difference between a number one option and a guy like AJ Green or a Dez in his prime, where he was like really the focus of the offense and was really going to get the targets.
Yep. The Saints are going to score a ton of points through Kamara. Like they're going to spread they spread the ball out. Like Breeze is too good of a quarterback to just. He's not like a Jameis Winston that's just going to throw 75% of the time to Mike Evans. He's going to spread the ball out to his offense. Thomas will get his points here and there, and will be a decent receiver. I'm not very high on him. That's why I didn't take him. I don't. I think OBJ's should get a lot more than 9 points this week, even though he is going against the Jags. I would give the edge to OBJ just because it's OBJ. He's gonna do whatever he can. He's gonna make those big plays.
I don't care who he's playing.
Yep.
It's OBJ. Jack Doyle, I'll take or leave Jack Doyle. I don't really think that much of him. Kyle Rudolph gets quite a few red zone looks. I give the edge to Rudolph.
Yeah, I like. I think Rudolph is gonna be like a tier one tight end this year with like Gronk and Kelsey and like Ertz, just because Alex Smith loves his tight end, or I think it's Kirk Cousins. I mean, by my he loves to throw the ball to his tight ends.
And then we have the Denver running back, Freeman. I don't really know much about this guy. He's a rookie, Royce Freeman.
Royce Freeman. He played for Oregon. He was really good at Oregon. Obviously, Oregon didn't have that good of a season, but I think this is his rookie year, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
A lot of people are high on him.
Top back.
Yeah, he'll be the number one back. A lot of people are high on him. I think he's predicted to have like 190 points this season for fantasy. I haven't really looked too much into him, but I think that's honestly a pretty good back. I think that's the one place so far that Weston will probably outshine me is like Derrick Henry versus Royce Freeman, but just because I'm running 3 receivers and not 3 backs.
Interesting. So Butler, he's the Kansas City kicker, or what is it?
Butker.
Butker. I wasn't sitting close enough to my PC to not assume that was Butler. Is he any good? You're a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, he's a really good kicker. He was up there with Dan Bailey, but why did the Cowboys cut Dan Bailey? I thought he was like 41 for 46 in the training camp, and then they just randomly cut him because he missed a field goal in this preseason game or something like that.
Supposedly he had a lingering back injury.
But I don't understand why they would cut him even though he had like such a good training camp.
Well, they were scheduled to pay him a lot of money. I guess they just didn't believe in him and didn't want to pay him.
Yeah. I don't know. You could give the edge to any kicker in this situation, Crosby and Butker. Butker's an amazing kicker, but so is Crosby, and especially with that Green Bay offense, Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be consistently in the red zone to get field goals or PATs. And I think the Chiefs offense has a really big year. Adding Sammy Watkins, I feel like that'll help out the receiving core with Kelsey and Tyreek. They're going to be spreading the ball out and Hunt even in the backfield. I think Mahomes is going to have a really good season as well. I'm not too worried about the offense.
Interesting. Mahomes is one of these guys that gets a lot of credit going into the season, a lot of hype around him, a lot of people saying he's going to do really well. I hope he does do well. I think it's exciting to picture an explosive player like Tyreek Hill matched up with a gunslinger from Texas Tech who's done
Mhm.
nothing but throw the ball around for that long.
Yep. I don't think it'll so much as be as Holmes playing like dominant or amazing. I think it's gonna be like all the offensive weapons he has to choose from. Like Hunt, he can dump off a screen pass. He can throw it to Tyreek for a screen, and the Chiefs loves doing those little dump off short passes. And since he played at Tech, like all they did was throw the ball. I think he'll be just fine and fit right in.
Emmanuel Sanders, whatever. I'm not having very high expectations for the Denver attack. To me, Denver is sort of a middling, subpar team. Their defense is pretty decent. They get sacks, but not high on Sanders.
Yeah, I feel like well for Denver, like Sanders is like he's the one receiver that even over Demarius Thomas, he was always the one like he would steal all the touchdowns. So I like Sanders coming off the bench. I think that'll help out a lot in those bye weeks. He's a good receiver to have to sub in.
I really like Devin Funchess. I think that in the past he's been Cam Newton's main option, especially after Kelvin Benjamin left. Cam was really looking at Funchess a lot. So
Mhm.
I was actually going to get Funchess and Weston nabbed him.
I really wanted to get Cam Newton. I feel like Cam Newton's going to have an amazing year this year. This is probably the most offensive weapons he's had with Greg Olson, Funches, CMC. I think he's going to have another MVP like season. Hopefully, he can finish it out and have a really good year.
I also hope that as a Panther fan that would be amazing, but to me watching Cam Newton, it's very frustrating. His completion percentage is so low and very often the drives just sort of end absurdly. Like it's almost like it's almost like high schoolish in a way because in situations you would think like, oh, okay, that was 8 yard gain on first down. Let's see, they got two chances to get 2 yards and they like screw it up somehow. It's pretty annoying. And we can see here that Weston went for Wentz, and as soon as Foles plays the first couple games, supposedly Wentz is going to be back.
I think Wentz is going to have another really good year. Obviously, he's what I think he was top 5 in the top 100 for this year, even though he was hurt. And what a backup to have. Nick Foles, easily the best backup quarterback in the league. Case Keenum right behind him. Shout out, starting for Denver. I'm super excited for that. I think Case Keenum will fit in well there, and glad he's finally getting a shot. And he'll be thrown to Emmanuel Sanders, so that should help him out a little bit. Wentz, I feel like having Wentz out this first week against me, I'm happy about it because he has to stick with Andy Dalton and doesn't really have that second option. So it helps him out a lot, especially with his quarterback one having to be Dalton. I'm not big on Andy Dalton at all. He has Corey Davis. I feel like that's Mariota's what I think number one receiver for the Titans. Jones is out on suspension. I don't know exactly for how long.
Oh,
And what were you saying?
I just, oh, like he beat someone. Oh,
Yeah. I feel like his bench isn't that strong, but Wentz, I don't feel like will be on the bench for long until he's starting. I think Andy Dalton will rotate onto the bench.
alrighty. So rate the team.
Um, Probably give it like a C plus.
I give it a C too
Yeah.
because he has a lot of guys that in theory are like the first option: Thomas, Crabtree, Freeman, Funchess.
Yeah.
But I'm
But
not really impressed with any of these people. I mean,
yeah.
Fournette, but he has the injury thing. Wentz, but he's a few freaking Foles starts away from a quarterback controversy if Foles tears it up.
Hmm.
You know, like, well, I mean, I remember I didn't think Weston had a very good team last year, and he killed it. So what the hell do I know?
That's so true.
All right, let's talk about you, Cgauch.
You can go ahead and lead it off. I'll be right back. I have to go to the restroom.
All right, I'll run through it. So Matt Ryan, a consistent quarterback, very obviously leads that potent Falcon attack, but made it up with Julio Jones. He's very powerful. Great pick. Derrick Henry leading things for the Tennessee Titans from the backfield. This is a guy who sort of graduated after being stuck behind the former Cowboy for so long. Dalvin Cook, Minnesota starter, blew his knee out last year. Lots of talent. If he recovers, he'll be elite. T.Y. Hilton, Indiana's #1 guy. If Luck stays healthy, he'll be very good. OBJ, elite receiver. Trying to be T.O. and Ocho Cinco. He's not quite there yet. Incredibly good. Kyle Rudolph catches lots of touchdowns. Goodwin, wide receiver for San Fran. Marquise Goodwin. I guess this is the guy that people are expecting Jimmy G to hook up with. I don't really know much about him, honestly. We'll have to see. Although if Jimmy G continues to play as well as he did at the end, then it definitely, I think, will be worth it. Mason Crosby, good kicker for an offense you know is going to score points. Texans D, pretty damn good while it's healthy. Alfred Morris, running back for San Fran. Let's see.
I'm back.
So is Alfred Morris the main thing since McKinnon blew his knee out?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so that's nice. That's really big for you. And then Derek Carr, who I was going to get and you snatched. Can you believe he's only 20% owned?
For Derek Carr?
Yeah.
Dang. Jackson isn't high. I can't remember. It may have been Jackson or Dom and John, but they weren't high on very high on Derek Carr either. I think he's going to have he could possibly have another MVP season. People tend to forget that he almost won the MVP that year before he blew his ACL.
I think that a lot of people think that the Oakland Raiders are a dumpster fire. I mean, they're trading away Khalil Mack for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
They're cutting Bryant, like it looks like they're just doing goofy shit.
Yeah, I don't understand the Khalil Mack trade at all.
It was nonsense. I think the people in the NFL just overvalue draft picks ridiculously. They'll give people away who are known commodities and can help a team win for draft. Like in this case, they got first rounds. They gave up a second. You know what I mean? Like they gave up draft picks to get draft picks. Seems like they got really hosed.
How many picks did they get? Just like 2?
I know they got like 2 first rounds and maybe 1 more conditional pick. I don't have the info in front of me though. But
to the Bears, man, they should have gotten they should have traded for like Jordan Howard or something.
The worst part is they gave up their 2020 second round, so it's like you don't even really, it's like.
So they gave up Mac and pick?
Like you get here's a valuable pick and Mac. Are you shitting me for a couple first rounds?
I don't know why they did that. I was also really happy to get Jamison Crowder on my bench. I tried to get him in our other league, but somebody scooped him up right before I could. I think he's going to be a great receiver coming off the bench or even just sub in for weeks here and over there.
Crowder's okay, I guess. I'm not a huge fan of Washington. I don't think they're going to be very good at all.
I'm like him just because Alex Smith loves dumping the ball over the middle, and Crowder's going to be that guy.
I think your bench is pretty weak minus Carr, Cgauch.
Yep, I agree. I didn't do very well on my bench picks.
Overall, I think your team gets a B. Or maybe a B minus. Because Derrick Henry's pretty good. Cook is a big question mark. If Cook goes back to playing how he was before he hurt his knee, he'll be fine. You have 2 good receivers that are the #1 target of at least offenses that we know can put up points. Now, Luck has been dick road and underperforming for 5 straight years, so you better hope that this is the year he gets it back together. Rudolph catches a lot of touchdowns, and I just think the middle of your lineup is pretty scary. If Cook is good, you'll have Cook, Hilton, Beckham, Rudolph. That's at least probably 3 or 4 touchdowns minimum every week. And in
Uh,
this week matchup in particular, I'm gonna edge to you.
yeah, I would as well. I don't know why I'm predicted less than him. Looking at his team, it's I don't know. I guess he got consistent players that are going to put up like average numbers. I definitely took a big risk in both of our leagues getting Ty, but I just have to go all in on him, man. I think he's going to do good.
Interesting. Okay, so let's move on. This video's running real long. Clap
Who's next?
Floor and Spencer.
Yep.
So Clap Floor, he was the one who took the chance on Deshaun. He got him. That's a great pick, running quarterback. He also got Shady McCoy, who I think is embroiled in some domestic abuse issues. And he got Crowell, who's a timeshare on a bad team. What do you think about these picks?
I think Deshaun. I think he kind of reached for him. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure
Got
he
him like
did.
in the fourth, I think.
Yeah, feel like that was a reach on Deshaun Watson. Any quarterback. I mean, other than Brady and Rodgers. But I always like wait till late to get quarterbacks, anyways. LaShawn, I feel like he's too injury prone. I'm not very big on him, and he's older. Isaiah Crowell seemed to like came out of the woodworks a couple years ago, but he's a good consistent running back. He's not gonna go off for like 20 like a David Johnson or a Zeke, but he'll consistently get like 8 to 10, 12 points a week. I like him. Doug Baldwin seems to be the go-to guy for Seattle and Wilson, and a lot of people are pretty high on him this year for like a wide receiver too. So I like that. His wide receiver core is strong with DeAndre and Baldwin. I like it.
I really can't stand Seattle, and quite frankly, I think they're going to be terrible this year, so I'm not high on Baldwin. I think Hopkins will pop off, and I think since he has Watson, he's in one of these high risk, high reward, discount double points positions where, I mean,
Hmm.
Watson could potentially have like an MVP caliber year because he did look so good last year, and
Hmm.
Hopkins could be the main benefactor of that.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But it's also like we're going to be relying on the Texans offense every week to win him games, and if they stall out, then they stall out, and he doesn't win that week. So it's like high risk, high reward type thing.
Then he has Ingram, Evan Ingram, on the Giants. Whatever. I mean, he's not horrible, but he's just one of those tight ends. And then Allen Robinson is supposed to be that dude in Chicago. At least Action J is not there anymore. And then, of course, Will Putz. He, surprisingly, he's to me, he's on a great offense, but as a person, he's really not that talented.
Yeah, I feel like the Saints put him just Drew Brees mostly puts him in a position to be successful like consistently, especially with all the weapons they have to get down there. He's normally having to make pretty short field goals.
And then the Eagles defense. Oh, they're so good. Fly, Eagles, fly. Philly Nation. Save it, Eagles fans. Ryan Matthews, Cole Beasley, Jimmy G.
I like the Jimmy G pick. I think he was playing really, really good towards the end of the season last year. Whenever he finally got to start, what was he 4-0 or 5-0 at the end of the season? I can't remember,
Yeah, he was strong. They
but I
kind of
think
reached for him.
yeah, he. I think Kevin drafted Marquise Lee, and he already had to drop him. But hopefully, it
Yeah.
wasn't with the early round picks.
No, it was late.
It was late for the bench ones. I like Jones. People were saying he was going to take over that starting job over Barber, but I guess Barber's kind of outshining him right now. So he's a good running back to have, like a handcuff. If Barber does get hurt, you just throw Jones in. You have a running back one.
I think Beasley could have a very good comeback year. After being just dog shit last year, he's
Mm-hmm.
actually in a position where he can tear shit up. You know,
Yeah,
Dak desperately needs a target he can trust. Witten's gone. Zeke is back. There's no disgusting Roger Goodell vendetta suspension. So Beasley's sitting there with an opportunity to succeed looking pretty. I think that will be a big part of how Kevin does because Allen Robinson, Doug Baldwin, I think between one of those guys they're going to be disappointing.
Mm.
Overall, Kevin's team is decent, but if you consider McCoy a question mark, which I do because of his domestic issues, then I think he has huge holes at running back, and I mean gaping.
Hmm. The fall off if McCoy's out or suspended, or if he definitely can get injured. He's one of those running backs that gets hurt pretty often. He has glass ankles, so I agree with the running back position being a gaping hole if McCoy goes down. Overall, I'd give him a C for his team right now.
Yeah, I say C plus. He does have the potential. If Watson has a great year and Hopkins is there, guess what, Cgauch? We're getting crappered. He is going to have like 140-point games. It's going to be disgusting.
Yep.
But if Watson gets hurt again, if Hopkins gets hurt, he's screwed. He's in a real bad position.
Who's Dueno de la Muerte? Who is that?
Spence Joe.
Of course he is, dude. Shit stain. Get him out of the
Spencer.
league, dude.
We call him Mr. Crapbox. Did you know
He
that?
is. I did not, and I'm very happy to know that now because he's pretty dog shit. He has Jared Goff at his quarterback position, and he has Blake Bortles for a backup. Not looking very good so far. Carlos Hyde, he plays for the. Do you see both of those running backs play for Cleveland?
Yep, I do see that. Two Cleveland guys and two Cleveland running backs. Oh,
But he does have Ingram on the bench, which, like I said before, I feel like Kamara can kind of wean him off of the Drew Brees tit, so to speak, in the first 4 weeks, just kind of blowing him out of the water. I feel like Kamara is going to take over that offense. Ingram hasn't been very good until last year, and it was kind of credit to Kamara just being such a threat. It was opening a lot of the run game for for Ingram to make something happen, but nonetheless, he did have 1,000-yard season.
yeah, Ingram did pop off last year, and I've been a big, well, I've never been a big fan of Mark Ingram, I guess you could say.
Me either.
And he is suspended for the first 4 games. We already spoke about how it could affect the offense.
He
And
has, and go ahead.
I just wanted to look at Spencer's team. Jared Goff, the Rams looked great last year. It's probably a solid pick. I like it. Carlos Hyde, Brown. Everyone, you, Cgauch, Rampy, all you guys say the Browns are going to win 6+ games. I think they're only going to win 3 or less. So to
Mm.
me, this Carlos Hyde pick is like, okay, 150 points over the whole year. It'll be decent. It's Carlos Hyde. He's going to get some 80-point, no touchdown games. He's sort of like Lamar Miller. But if somehow, for the first time in living memory, the Browns don't suck, and their Southern quarterback that they drafted, Baker Mayfield, is actually some sort of beast, and he
He is a
starts
beast.
to carry them, well, holy shit! Then Spencer's looking great. Spencer told me Duke Johnson plays a lot as a receiver, like he lines up as a wideout, but he's listed at running back. So
Well,
I guess that sort of tempers the whole like, oh, 2 running backs from the same team.
well, guess what, Spencer? This isn't PPR, so shit pick. I think Baker Mayfield's going to have a. If he does end up taking over the start, Tyrod or Baker, I think they'll have a good year. But I honestly think the Browns' success is going to rely a lot on if Gordon plays every game. If Gordon plays the whole season, he was 1,000-yard receiver before. I think he can get back to that. He looked really good in the training camp so far from what the Hard Knocks has allowed us to see. This is definitely the most offensive weapons they've ever had. Um, if there's a year for them to bounce back, I think it's this one. So that's why I'm predicting them to have at least 6 wins, 5 to 6 wins. I don't like his running back core right now. It's not looking very good. Even with Ingram even starting and not suspended, I'm not very high on it just because I feel like Kamara is going to take over, like I've said previous multiple times. Antonio Brown, not much to be said. He's like a Brady. He's just dominant receiver, gonna
Legend.
score every which way. Eats Skittles for a living. He's just a god amongst boys out there. Keenan Allen, I think that's a good wide receiver pick. He's getting kind of older, but he does tend to be like top five, top three in the reception column. But depends on what he does with the ball. The Chargers are predicted to win their division this year, which hurts me a lot, being a Chiefs fan. But I do like his wide receiver with Thielen, Brown, Keenan Allen. He has Jimmy Graham. I think Jimmy Graham could possibly have a big year with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball a ton. He lost Jordy Nelson. So I think his receiving core is top notch.
If you consider Keenan Allen, he is one of these consistent guys who does get targeted in the red zone and gets a lot of touchdowns. So Keenan Allen, right out the gate, he's not the flashiest guy, but over there Phil Rivers is throwing to him quite a bit, especially since Antonio Gates is gone. And as I said, Antonio Brown, you can't beat him. Jimmy Graham could have a big year considering he'll be Aaron Rodgers' main target. And Adam Thielen is sort of the consistent yards guy to complement Stephon Diggs, the deep threat on that Minnesota offense. So Spencer has a lot of weapons here as long as you do not consider the running back position. Like if you look at running back, if you look at tight end, Spencer has some people who can really go deep.
Yeah, I think he definitely has the best wide receiver core so far that we've seen.
So what do you think about the rest of his squad?
Robbie Gould, decent kicker. 49ers, it's kind of iffy if they make it down there. It depends on if Garoppolo is going to play like he did last season, then that would be a good pickup. Jags defense, I said before that their defense and the Rams are going to be 1 and 2 this year. I love Jalen Ramsey. Speaks his mind, dude. Dominant quarterback, another Deion Sanders type player. His bench, Mark Ingram, that's a decent RB. Don't really need to say anything else on him. Chris Thompson, I feel like that was like a handcuff pick to see if I forgot what I was about to say.
Talking about Thompson, the handcuff pick.
Wasn't he the running back behind McKinnon?
I thought that was your guy.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. I didn't like him just because Alfred Morris is gonna take over that spot, not Thompson. I don't know why he scooped him up, but I'm pretty sure Alfred Morris doesn't play for Washington.
Damn it, Cgauch.
49ers.
Yep.
I guess he's a bench player for a reason. But Kelvin Benjamin, I feel like he can have a pretty good season coming out. Like this would be for him to have a good season. This will be the one for him to have. He's a big receiver. Was dominant in college. Him and Cam Newton weren't seen eye to eye at Carolina. They even I don't know if you saw the video of them like face to face and like
Yeah.
Cam Newton came up for this handshake. They're not very friendly towards each other. So I feel like this new change of pace and like a new setting, he'll be fine at Buffalo. Hopefully he does have a decent year. I want to see him be successful since he was so good in college. Blake Bortles kind of gone downhill. I feel like his best season was like this first or second year in the league throwing to Allen Robinson. But he doesn't really have those offensive weapons anymore other than Fournette. And Fournette's even kind of iffy with his injuries. So Blake Bortles is, I guess you could say, an all right bye week, like fill-in at quarterback. I'm not very high on him. What do you think?
Well, I don't really think that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be as good as they were last year. And I've never been high on Bortles at all. To me, there are so many options that you can go with in this league. And Bortles might have had some seasons where he had some big numbers, but in general, I don't think he's really all that great.
Yep. Delaney Walker, or not Delaney Walker. I just saw D Walker. Devontae Parker. He's a decent receiver, not the wide receiver one there, and he injured his finger apparently on Sunday, so he has a cast over it on his left hand. So that's not looking good for him. Eckler, I don't even know who that is, dude.
He's just the backup for the Chargers, so if Melvin Gordon gets hurt, he'll have him.
Yeah, that not very likely. Melvin Gordon's pretty beastly. I'd give his team like a B minus, C plus, just because how dominant his wide receiver core is. I'm not very high on Goff. You said you were. I don't really like that pick, so I'd give him a B minus.
I'll give him a B. I think he has a pretty big gaping hole at running back, and he's either relying on, the Browns to pop off or for Melvin to get hurt. He might find himself in a situation where he's trying to package a player off for a running back, or potentially package maybe like a Brown for two good running backs or something. Who knows? But I give him a B. I think it's a solid team. And Kelvin Benjamin, I don't really believe in because he burned out with the Panthers. And frankly, they sort of just traded him for nothing. And if we look at the matchups, Jacksonville will outperform the Eagles. Will Lutz will outperform Gold. Thielen will outdo Robinson, I think. And Graham will definitely outperform Ingram. Who do you give this the edge to, Cgauch?
I hate to say it, but I have to give the edge to Spencer in this week.
I think Spencer's going to win this one as well.
All right, who's next?
The new guys and Gruden's Grinders.
J-Mac.
All
Who
right.
is Sam?
Sam is an Aggie that Spencer and Weston are friends with.
Oh, no.
So we got Sam, Luck, who everybody likes and dick rides and always gets injured. Kareem Hunt, an explosive chief, and Christian McOne touchdown. What do you think, Gouch?
I think Andrew Luck bounces back this year and has another. He'll be a top 10 quarterback in the league. I think if he stays healthy, it's going to help out a lot with my pick on T.Y. Hilton, so I'm rooting for him. Kareem Hunt, I love to death. He's a beast. One of my friends that I play Siege with on PC actually met him and didn't even get a picture with him, so I was kind of disappointed in that. I think the Chiefs will have a very good offense this year if Mahomes plays out, which I think he will, just with the talent of offensive weapons he has with him, just filling in. I think any quarterback could really go in there and throw the ball around a little bit and score the points. Christian McCaffrey, I like him. I think he's a really good running back. He can score in a multitude of ways, just catching the ball. He's a good runner. But the thing I don't like is if he gets the ball within like the 10 or the 5, Cam is going to be stealing a lot of those touchdowns. And Jackson has Cam Newton. So Cam Newton has the talent and he can definitely scoop a bunch of those running touchdowns that McCaffrey should have earned just by falling short. So I'm not very high on him, but he's an RB2, so I guess that's a decent pick. And with how many offensive weapons the Panthers have this year, I think he'll do good.
To me, I think you hit the nail on the head because McCaffrey is a cute little option. He's going to get his looks, but in the red zone, Cam is just going to eat so many of those freaking touchdowns. It's ridiculous. And Kareem Hunt, as I said, he is an explosive guy. He's going to blow up and have these massive games where everyone thinks that he's the best thing in the world. And quite frankly, you have to tamper your expectations to some extent because he's not going to be able to put in these performances every single game. Golden Tate, very talented guy, but he's with a team that's not very good. He's going to get his looks because Stafford is pretty damn good. But I'm not that high on Tate because I'm not very high on Detroit. What do you think?
I like Tate. I feel like people undervalue Stafford. He's a really good quarterback. I mean, he's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league.
Oh yeah.
I feel like Tate is like he's the receiver and like the number one option, but he gets a ton of those the receptions, but he's not like a Juju Smith-Schuster that can make like big plays with the ball. I feel like Marvin Jones that guy, and Marvin Jones steals a lot of the touchdowns. And Jackson does have like the perfect counter. He has Cam to steal the McCaffrey TDs. He has Jones to steal the Golden Tate TDs. I think Jackson wins both those matchups just because he has like the perfect guys to counter him, which kind of takes away from their value in this game. but they can definitely be a lot better in weeks to come against other teams. Mike Evans, I like that. I like him because he's going to get the ball like 70, 80% of the time of the passes from Jameis. Even Jameis is out, I think, 3 weeks or 4 weeks,
Yeah,
and
touchy
so I feel like
touchy.
the backup is going to rely on him a lot, or just run the ton of the ball, and whenever they pass, it's going to Evans. That's all they really have other than Deshaun. Deshaun will kind of take a couple of those touchdowns every now and then. I like the Ertz pick. He's a top tier tight end, top 3 tight end in the league, so I like that a lot.
I think Evans's value is a bit tampered because of the suspension to Winston. Evans, really, a lot of his value comes from the fact that, Winston really likes to find a favorite receiver and target them a lot. Well, can't really do that if you're not in the game. Zach Ertz, yes, he is a very strong tight end. Dion Lewis, not high on him. Backup, timeshare. Elliott for Philly, whatever. It's probably a good pick. Philly's going to score points. Cardinals defense, not that high on, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not very high on the Cardinals D either. They just lost Tyrann Mathieu. The biggest name they have now is Patrick Peterson, and I feel like he's probably going to leave soon or retire soon. Dion Lewis, I'm not high on either. I feel like I like Derrick Henry a lot. Derrick Henry's going to be the guy. He's going to get the ball on the goal line 95% of the time just because of how big and dominant of a player he is. He's going to be getting the ball most of the rushes unless they want to do like a pitch or an outside zone play or maybe even like a dump off pass. It'll go to Lewis. But I think Derrick Henry outshines him and kind of pushes him out of the offense once they realize that he can make all those plays himself without having to sub that dude in. Uh, his Sammy Watkins on the bench, which I feel like is the weakest link on the Chiefs offense. I feel like he'll open the field up a little bit more so that way teams will have to cover him instead of just like double teaming Tyreek or Kelsey. I feel like that'll open the offense more, but I feel like that's the most he'll do is he'll just be somebody there to kind of fill in and make the defense like worry about a little bit. Rex Burkhead, he's all right. Not very high on him either. The Patriots are going to be throwing the ball a ton anyways. They have Brady. They're not going to really have to run the ball unless it's to punch in like a few goal line plays here and there. But most of the time, Gronk will just catch like a 20-yard touchdown himself and score it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not big on Burkhead. What do they have? Fucking 6 running backs over there. Not really high on Watkins either. I never have been. I do really like Will Fuller because I think the Texans are going to do well until Watson gets hurt. And of course, Hopkins is the number one guy, but if he gets hurt or if he gets double teamed, Fuller will be the guy. And Carson on Seattle, I don't care about because I think Seattle's going to be in the tank. And a Jacksonville receiver named Cole. Don't know much about that. Not a fan of that, although Lee is hurt, so it could be okay. Overall, I'm not impressed with this team. I'm giving it a C minus. Gouch?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that as well. I'd probably give it a C, C plus.
Okay. Gruden's Grinders. He's got Cam, explosive but inconsistent. He's got Gurley, who is great. And he's got Collins. What do you think of all 3, Gouch?
I think he probably has like the top, like to look at any team in the league, the top 3 guys. I feel like he has the best ones. Cam Newton, I feel like can have it like I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is the most offensive weapons he's had in his career. I think he could possibly have another MVP like run at the candidacy, I guess you could say. If he just figures out how to protect the ball a little bit more whenever he's throwing it and not be as careless, just maybe throw it out or just run the ball. He can definitely make a lot of plays with his leg. He's a dual threat quarterback, and he's, I think, the biggest quarterback in the league. Todd Gurley, amazing pick. He's probably the most consistent running back you could get. They were in the number 1 offense last year, and he's probably the safest pick as well. So I feel like that was a good pick. I know he was going back and forth. I was with him. He was going back and forth on Zeke or Gurley, and I kind of convinced him to take Gurley, whether or not I don't know if he even needed convincing. Alex Collins, the Baltimore is going to be running the ball a lot just because Joe Flacco's kind of dog shit and out the door. I feel like once Lamar Jackson comes in, he could steal a lot of those like rushing points just because Lamar can make all kinds of plays happen with the ball. I didn't think he'd be able to run around like that once he got in the league, but looking at these preseason games, he's been able to make some plays happen with his feet. But Baltimore does tend to lean towards the run heavy side, so I feel like that's a good running back to have. He could be a possible running back one. Marvin Jones already touched base on. He steals a lot of the touchdowns, and he has big play capabilities. Devontae Adams, I like that pick a lot just because Jordy's gone. And other than Jimmy Graham, he's going to be getting the ball a lot, and he was already scoring, I think, most of their touchdowns even whenever he was there this past season or the season before just because he was injured. But I feel like him and Rodgers connect a lot. Trey Burton, I've been seeing him getting taken a lot in like mock drafts because I'm a nerd and I just run mock drafts, as Jackson would say. I
Okay.
don't really know too much about him, but Jackson seemed to like him. I heard him talking about him a lot. And then Barber is a good pick. He's the RB1 at Tampa Bay right now.
Interesting. Okay. So to me, I don't know all that much about Burton. I guess you would really have to ask me how much do I believe in Trubisky, the Chicago quarterback, and the answer is really not all that much. Now, it's not like Action J where it's like, oh God, he's terrible, just stay away from him. But at the same time, I'm not ready to go all in on all of his attacking options. You were completely right about Adams. Now, even though that the Packers do like to spread the wealth, he's going to be the guy that gets it more often than not, other than the tight end. So I like that. Not a big fan of Jones. And personally, I don't think Baltimore's going to score so many points, so I don't know what to think about Collins. So you can finish off his roster.
Justin Tucker, dominant kicker, one of our favorites. We all love him. Uh, Patriots defense. I feel like Patriots defense isn't. It's not. I don't know. Not dominant, you could say, but it's just like they don't really have to be on the field that often, just because Brady is such a good player with like time management. So they're always. I feel like they do their job well, so it's going to be a good defense they have, and even I don't like their matchup for week one just because DeAndre Hopkins and Watson have the capability to pick and choose where they want to go and score. So I don't feel like they'll have a big week. His defense is all right. He has Meredith just for like a handcuff receiver, I guess you could say, or just throw him in for a bye week and hope he gets some points. He has Breeze thrown to him, and Breeze is a good quarterback to spread the ball out. Kenny Stills, I don't like that pick very much, and that's all I really see other than more that Cam Newton like discount double points, I guess.
Yeah, you could say that, but you know how Cam is with his receivers. He doesn't ever really seem to establish a really solid bond with his receivers. You know, sort of like that with Benjamin, and then all of a sudden he has beef with Benjamin, and then Benjamin's gone.
Yep.
It's weird. Cam Newton almost throws to Olsen more than anyone.
I know Jackson's high on Robbie, or not really high on Robbie Anderson, but I know he's talked about him for this past year, and he liked that pick last night. I know he was going for him for the bench play. Overall, I'd give Jackson like a B plus, just because his running backs are so dominant, are going to be so dominant. Alex Collins, you have to kind of see how that plays out, but Baltimore loves to run the ball, so I feel like that was a good pick. Cam Newton, I feel like top three quarterback this year, hopefully. Yeah, I like Jackson's team, so I'd give it a B plus, and I give him the edge to win this week.
I give him a B minus. I think that Cam's a little inconsistent. I don't really trust Collins despite him looking promising. Don't trust Jones at all. Don't really trust Burton. Don't trust Barber. This is one of those teams where if some of the more questionable things that he has planned hit, then he's going to look really strong. But he does have quite a few question marks. And I don't think his bench is also full of guys that could pop off or be bad. He doesn't have a lot of sure things on his bench to fall back on.
Who do you give the edge to?
I would give the edge to Jackson in this week.
Mm,
So Cam's team and no fried. You'd lead off talking about Cam.
okay. Aaron Rodgers, not much to say. He's like a Drew Brees. He's probably the only quarterback that can contest Drew Brees for MVP season in, season out. Truly a dominant quarterback. Pretty amazing with the weapons that he has. He's like he's like a Brady. He can make a decent receiver look amazing with just by how he can place the ball and wherever he wants to throw it. Devontae Freeman, I feel like he's the running back to have for the Falcons. He is a timeshare, but the Falcons do tend to score from every which way they possibly can with Julio. They have Matty Ice throwing the ball, which Aaron, quote unquote, said overrated last night whenever I drafted him. Like an idiot. Didn't win the Super Bowl MVP or anything. But made it there. He can definitely make some plays happen. He spreads the ball out, shares the wealth. Saquon Barkley, I don't know why people are so high on him. He's unproven, plays for the Giants. Odell's going to be getting majority of those points. I feel like he'll be there to kind of open up the passing game a little bit, but even with Odell there, he's going to be outshining Barkley for those points week in and week out. Demaryius Thomas, I've never been really high on him. I always felt like Sanders was always the receiver to have at Denver just because he scores most of the touchdowns. Demaryius gets the receptions and kind of gets the ball moving a little bit, and then Sanders makes the big plays. Jarvis Landry, I like him a lot just because he's a playmaker and he gets the ball. He's top receiver in the league for receptions, but he is at Cleveland now, so it's going to be kind of like a T.Y. Hilton to see how it plays out and see what happens at the quarterback position. What do you think?
Well, to be frank, I sort of agree with you about Barkley. He is very questionable and very unproven. Now, I think the potential upside of having a guy that pops off in his rookie year, sort of like Fournette did last year, is really appealing to some people. I think a lot of people draft like 8th, ninth, or 10th, really want a running back, and are sort of just left with Barkley, this supposed generational talent. I've already given my thoughts on Freeman. I think him and Coleman are both sort of a splitsy operation. Rodgers, don't even need to talk about him. Demaryius Thomas, he is on an offense that is having a younger guy come into it and take the reins, so it's hard to really judge what he's going to do. But my gut instinct is I'm not really feeling it that much. Landry, he had a shit tier year and then went to Cleveland. No thank you. Jordan Reed catches touchdowns, but his offense keeps getting worse and worse. His quarterback got worse, and before, one of the main reasons he was good is because his fucking quarterback loved him. Greg the Leg is really talented, but Cam reached, and the Packers defense is decent.
How are you going to say his quarterback got worse? You got Alex Smith.
Yeah, it was better before.
Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is pretty good.
Alex Smith is pretty good.
No, Alex Smith is average personified. Like if you
No.
look up the word average in the dictionary, it's going to be Alex Smith. He never pops off.
He's like
He's
the most
rarely
efficient quarterback
bad.
in the league.
He's rarely bad. He just plays really safe and gets the job done. He never lights it up. I mean, it's not
I
like he's
disagree with that statement.
It's
100%.
not like he's that much worse than Cousins, but I mean, come on.
Fuck Cousins. Alex Smith's better.
Tub, tub, tub. Girl, girl, girl.
His bench is lackluster, to be honest. Balaj Powell, Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson is on his way out the door, so to speak.
Uh-huh. 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, Mariota, Dak Prescott. Mariota, I feel like he could be better if his O-line kept him from getting slammed on the dirt every fucking play. Dak Prescott is pretty shit. Tyrell Williams had a foot injury, so I don't think he's going to be very well this year. Melvin Gordon's going to be getting 90% of their offensive points anyways. Not very high on the Chargers receivers. I'd give Cameron's team like a C minus. I don't like his running backs, and then his receiving core, his best receiver is Jarvis Landry, and he plays for the Browns. So
I agree. I give it a C minus. Weak receivers, weak tight end. I mean, really shitty receivers. If Barkley works out, he has a decent top half with Freeman, Rodgers, and Barkley. Barkley crashes, he's probably the worst team in the league. And he's playing no fried. Russell Wilson, great last year, rushing quarterback, but going downhill. Melvin Gordon, pretty damn good. Jay Ajayi in a timeshare. I'm not a huge fan of Wilson. I think Seattle is going to fall off. I think that Melvin Gordon will probably do pretty well, and Jay Ajayi is going to have his goal line touches tampered with. What do you think?
I think Russell Wilson will be fine. I don't see the Seahawks as being as good as they have been previously, just because they're losing so many defensive weapons. So I feel like the Seahawks are going to be behind a lot. So he's going to have to be on the field a lot more, and having to try and score and bring his teams back. Melvin Gordon, I feel like he's going to be one of the best running backs. His O line's good. I don't think their strength of schedule is that bad this year, but he does play in a very tough division with the Chiefs and Denver. I like the Melvin Gordon pick a lot. Ajayi, I don't think he's a very good pick. I think he's kind of overrated in a sense. Pierre Garcon, shit. Julio Jones, great pick for my Matty Ice. I wish I could have gotten him. I kind of wish I would have gone Odell, Julio, but then again, I would have missed out on my running back quarter. Would have been shit as it kind of already is, unless Dalvin Cook pans out. I love the Travis Kelce pick just because that's like a kind of like a Gronk. You can't really go wrong with Gronk, Kelce, and Ertz. They're basically like a second wide receiver one. I like Kelce a lot. He has swagger. Love the TD celebrations. He's, I guess, engaged or dating this very beautiful light-skinned girl.
Okay.
And Chiefs fan, dude. Chiefs player. Love him. Matt Prater, great kicker. Ravens defense. Like we've said multiple times, and we're probably going to keep saying it. Ravens are out the door. They're going to be the new Browns here pretty soon unless Lamar Jackson makes something happen. And Williams, I think, is the Green Bay starting running back, so it may be a decent pick. I think No Fried Rice actually has a pretty decent team. He also has Alex Smith and Cousins on the bench.
Yep. Well, to me, it's the running back that makes him strong. The fact that he has Julio and Kelce, too, I could give a shit that Garcon is kind of bad. He has a lot of fucking insurance at quarterback backed up on the bench. To me, his bench is very unimpressive overall. He has some tight end depth, though, which is something that it feels like he freaking does every year. But I digress. So the point is he gets a B+.
Yeah, I agree with that rating. I'd give him a B+ as well. I also give him the edge over Cameron this week.
Agreed.
Cameron's just surprisingly shit every year. It's baffling to me.
Is it surprising if it happens every year?
I don't know. You say I suck every year, but I beat you every year. So is it a surprise?
I don't say you suck every year.
Yeah, I know. You just always give me a hard time in these pre-draft rankings.
It's because your teams fairly make sense.
My team last year I thought was going to be pretty good, and it's
And
bad.
how many wins did you finish with there, Cgauch?
Oh, that was my worst year ever.
Was it?
By far. Ben got last place. Are you going to give Ben shit?
A bit. Like, you know what's funny?
Ben normally has a pretty damn good team.
Everyone I've talked to was like basically saying Ben was down and out, and that his team was like so bad that it meant that he was like doesn't care about fantasy anymore. And I went back and looked, in the fucking year before he had the best record.
Yep.
And I was like, he just had an off year.
That's how I feel like last year.
Okay, so let's fucking close this thing and finish strong.
The fantasy genius. You want to start it off?
Yeah, he's got Mahomes. He's flipping that coin. That's one of those things where if Mahomes has a great fucking year and everybody likes him and everyone's sucking him off deep and he's throwing 80-yard bombs to Hill and everyone's all excited, yay! You know, it's great. But if Mahomes has rookie troubles and the Chiefs look like shit, then it's not going to be good at all, is it? So that's a tricky pick. It's a risky pick. He's got Bell. He's got Howard. Might be the best 1-2 running back punch in the league. And he has Josh Gordon, who is always stoned. and always suspended. And he has Hill, who's a deep threat, so 2 deep threats. And he has Greg Olson, an elite tight end. Cooper Kupp, who likes it in the pooper. And Cooper Kupp really is a kind of a slot guy, known for receptions over everything else. Boswell, Pittsburgh's kicker, decent. The thing about Boswell is they'll get in these retarded games with the Baltimore Ravens where it's like 18 to fucking 15, and he'll have 6 field goals.
What about the Chiefs playoff game the year before last, and he got like 17 points, all field goals, and they beat us?
That was just absolutely ridiculous. You
I
know,
was very upset.
the Chiefs get to the playoffs and they just fucking find ways to lose.
It's a joke, dude. Couldn't score. We just like couldn't score touchdowns in the second half. It's very frustrating. Honestly, my favorite pick on this team is Case Keenum on the bench, starting for Denver. Going to be probably the number 1 quarterback in fantasy, I'm thinking. But in all seriousness, Patty Mahomes, I think is going to honestly have a pretty good year. I think not like top 12 in the league or like top 10 or anything like that. Just he'll probably play it safe. Like he has a ton of offensive weapons, like I've said before. Really, it's on him to screw this up, and nothing else can really hold him back unless it's himself. Le'Veon Bell, amazing pick if he could stay healthy, which I think he will. He's fighting for a contract this year, so I think he's going to have a pretty dominant performance. I think he's going to ball out and go get that money this year. Jordan Howard, very good running back for the Browns. Or I mean, not the Browns, Chicago Bears. I agree with you that he definitely probably has the best running back core in the league, which is no surprise from Ben. He's always been a very good fantasy player up until last year. He just had a down year. I agree with that. Josh Gordon, I feel like, is a very good sleeper pick. I feel like a bunch of people are scared on Josh Gordon, but tend to forget when Josh Gordon was playing and not smoking that pot, he was doing pretty damn good. I think he had like a 1,000-yard year the year before he got removed from the league. Tyreek, I like Tyreek just because his big play capability, because he can score from every which way, kick returns, punt returns, big plays, short little dump off passes that he can make things happen. He's not very known for getting all like the receptions like Kelsey will, and Kelsey can score a lot of those red zone TDs from him, and as well as Hunt. That's like the only downfall to Hill is that the Chiefs are going to have so many offensive weapons this year. But he definitely does have big play capability, and it's also going to be discount double points for him with Patty Mahomes starting, so I do like it. Greg Olson, an elite tight end, Cam Newton's probably favorite target to go to. His little security blanket, Greg Olson, I like that pick. Cooper Kupp, I agree with you. He does get a lot of receptions, but he also can make a lot of things happen with the ball. So I think he's going to have a pretty decent year, especially at like a flex wide receiver 3 position. I feel like that's a very good pick. Boswell, fuck you. Chargers defense, don't like it very much. Love the bench just because the Case Keenum pick. Allen Hurns, I'm not very high on him just because he plays for the Cowboys with Dak throwing him the ball.
He's got
Brando
Jordy down there.
I didn't scroll down that far. Or it's at the top.
Jordy,
I know. I don't feel like Jordy's going to be the same old Jordy like he was. They said he's looking pretty good in the training camp, but I feel like this is the year, like you said before, like Amari Cooper has to go off. Like Amari Cooper has to have a year. So I feel like he's not going to be stealing a lot of the receptions from Amari, but I feel like he's going to be playing that, like kind of like that Sammy Watkins role. He'll be out there and they'll have to have no choice but to put somebody on him and take away a few defenders to help Amari out. Overall, I'd give him a B+. I like his team. His receiving core is very iffy, but he definitely has the best 2 running backs in the league, and you can never really count a team out that has dominant running backs.
I'm going to give Ben an A-. I really like his team. He takes a big risk with Mahomes, but sort of I guess, balances it out with Bell and Howard. And if Hill and Mahomes suddenly have big rookie chemistry, look out. This team means business. And he has Keenum, the wily guy, to back up. Hurns, I agree with you. Like, I don't think Hurns is going to do a whole lot. I think the Cowboys are going to run it nonstop. To me, this team comes down to maybe Ben needs to trade one of his running backs for a couple good receivers. You know, like maybe that's the solution. Who knows? But I like the team a lot.
Mhm.
And then we have Ramp, the waiver wire wonder. He got Rapelessberger, who's aging but pretty good. You got Kenyon Drake, who Ajayi was basically traded to make room for. And then Alvin Kamara, who he reached with the number 2 pick to grab. What did you think of that?
Me and Jackson were kind of making a joke that he was going for Kamara with the number 1 pick, and seeing Aaron take him at 2, it was very. I laughed. I'm gonna be honest. I laughed pretty loud. I would have, not saying that's a bad pick, but with the players that were there, like he could have gotten Bell, which is clearly a way better pick than Kamara. But I do like his running back core with Kamara and Drake. I really wanted Drake over Henry in both of our leagues, but I had to sit over Henry just for because he would get taken like 3 to 5 picks before it was my pick to go again. Rathesberger,
Yeah.
I feel like he's a consistent quarterback, but it's also like he's going to be like kind of like a Patty Mahomes type. He always has like AB. He had Martavis Bryant, which even whenever he was in the games and not fucking up, like he was a decent receiver to get the ball to. He has Bell to throw, like dump it off to and hand it off and open up the pass game. I don't know. I feel like Roethlisberger is a decent, consistent quarterback to have. Aguilar, I'm not very high on. Plays for the Eagles though, so can't really count them out with wins. They just won the Super Bowl. Diggs, I don't like. I feel like he's like a better Brandon Cooks, but he's like he just gets those deep bombs, and so he'll go off every games. Like he'll get his little like 9 points and 10 points here and there, but he'll have like every now and then have like a 20-point game just because he got like a 60-yard touchdown or something like that. Gathers, I don't even know who that is. I'm guessing that's the new tight end for Dallas. Marshawn, I feel like he's should have stayed retired. It's kind of hurting his legacy that he's playing still and not doing very well. I don't like him as a running back, but it's a running back 3. So it's all right. He's going to get those points for Oakland here and there. He's going to be getting the ball. Carson plays for Minnesota, so they'll probably be kicking a lot of field goals just because they don't really have a ton of those offensive weapons other than like Dalvin Cook and Diggs to score them touchdowns. So I don't feel like he'll be kicking a ton of field goals, but I feel like he won't be like the Falcons where they're consistently scoring touchdowns and making PATs. I feel like he'll be having to make those like 30, 40-yard field goals for them. Steelers defense, I'm not a big fan of, but they consistently have a decent defense, and they're playing the Browns, so that's a pretty good matchup for Week 1 against Ben. Edelman, I like, but he is on suspension right now for I don't even know how long, 4 games.
4 games, PEDs.
Jeez, white boy, dude, you're slandering us. I feel like he's a very good receiver. He's Brady's number 2 and also can be that number 1 guy for him if Gronk is out, or even sometimes Gronk is in and he's just getting double covered. Edelman seems to be that guy that's consistently making the plays. He had that amazing catch in the Super Bowl to keep that drive alive and potentially lead them back to win the Super Bowl. Phillip Rivers, good consistent backup quarterback. He's like a Roethlisberger. I wouldn't mind either one of them starting. They're consistent, smart players, veterans in the league. Adrian Peterson, I feel like he's kind of like a Marshawn Lynch type. He's just hurting his legacy by keeping on going. You know, he's not gonna make big plays like he was. I feel like everybody's thinking about him and Marshawn for what they used to be and not what they are now. Chris Hogan, I like that, but he has Edelman as well. So I don't understand why he stacked Patriots receivers on his bench like that. Sterling Shepard, decent, I guess, bye week guy to throw in there every now and then. But Odell is going to be getting 95% of those receiving touchdowns, and Dan Bailey is currently not on the team. I'd give Aaron probably like a C minus C, and I also give the edge to Ben for this week.
I give the edge to Ben in this matchup as well. To me, I think Drake is somewhat unproven, and we spoke a lot about the Saints offense. I just don't think Chimera is going to do it all he did last year. Aguilar is in an offense where the quarterbacks are changing, and Supposedly Alshon Jeffrey is going to miss a couple weeks, so he could pop off for those 2 weeks. But I had him last year, and he's never really going to have great games, so he'll get the occasional 15 points.
Yeah.
Diggs is a deep threat. He has to contend with Thielen stealing some of his catches and a new quarterback, but he's still pretty good. Gathers, I'm considering joke tier. Lynch was never really that good. He seemed like too concerned with like trying to be cute and like escorting people out or like dancing to Oakland music, as Weston so poetically put it. Carlson for Minnesota, whatever. Probably not even a top 10 kicker. Steelers defense is decent. Hogan's pretty good. He's on New England. Shepard is good, especially if OBJ gets hurt. Peterson in Washington. I can't believe Peterson plays. Then he has Phil Rivers to back up Big Ben. Overall, I don't know. There's just not a whole lot to be excited about. Maybe C plus, B minus.
I would also like to go back and change my rating on your team. I'd give your team probably the only A of the draft, just because you
Really?
have, yeah, Breeze, David Johnson, AJ Green, Gronk. Like you have two wide receiver ones theoretically. David Johnson's set to have a breakout year. Breeze is gonna have probably a comeback year. I'd give your team like an A minus. You and Ben. Ben is a pretty good team
Yeah, to me,
if his receivers pan out.
yeah, Ben has the standout 1-2 punch of Bell Howard,
Mhm.
and
I
then,
think my team's pretty strong, but also I'm not gonna rate my own team. I'm just probably being biased, anyways.
well, the thing about your team, it's all about the running backs. If Cook holds up and he's really good, you do have a scary team. Alright, so let's wrap this up. It's been a long ass video. Cgauch, do you have any final words?
uh, Aaron, your team's shit. Spencer, your team's shit, and that's about it. Cameron, thanks for showing up on time this year. God bless. Thanks for the $25 donation. I appreciate it.
We'll leave it at that. Rate, comment, sub.